Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of
Gentle power.
We are recording this in bed in Albania because it's not as spicy as it might sound. We are bedridden from COVID.
And I'm pretty sure I also got COVID or I just got a really bad cold. But for context, we are visiting Gerta's family in Albania for the holidays. We flew from San Francisco all the way to Albania, and both Gerta and I got really sick. It's been about a week now, and we're still trying to recover. We knew Gerta got COVID because she lost all sense of taste, couldn't taste any food. However, we are not going to break our streak of publishing an episode every single week. We're just not going to use video for this. We're using audio only.
Basically, we got sick day one as soon as we got here, and it's been over 10 days at this point, and we're bedridden, and we were going to try to power through, but there's so many logistics, and we look sick, and I think we sound sick as well. So we decided to just not break the streak and record on the first day of the year so that we keep the streak all year.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. And this is also a lesson in not being perfectionists. We think the consistency is more important than high production value. So we're doing no video, and it's kind of funny. We're using one of those mics that you see a lot of TikTokers use. I guess I learned a life lesson in ordering from Temu because on the picture when I ordered this mic, it showed two mics, and I thought that each of us would have one, but what arrived was just one tiny little handheld mic. So we're using that right now. If our talking is a little choppy, it's because we actually have to pass the mic back and forth to each other.
Couple exciting updates for this year. We're starting the year strong. Alex is DJing tomorrow at one of the top bars in Albania. It's called Pepper Lounge. Very excited about that. And he has a surprise for the audience, for the people who will be there. And we'll share what the surprise is on our next recording.
I think I can just say it right now because I have produced, I guess it's technically my first track, but it is a remix of a very famous Albanian song that I grabbed the vocals from and I put it on top of a really vibey Afro House track. And I got this ready in time for my set here in Albania tomorrow. This is also a lesson. If you want to get something done, schedule something that will force you to actually finish that. Because I've been DJing a lot, but I've been sitting on the production thing, really slow rolling it. But in just the last few days, I've made more progress than I have in like the last year.
Yeah, and this is one of my favorite Albanian songs. Maybe we'll link to your SoundCloud next week. So that was sort of a personal update that's on Alex's side. Semi-professional, I guess, because you're taking your DJ journey very seriously, which I'm very supportive of. And my update is that in a week or so, I'm going to Boston because I'm giving a masterclass at MIT on negotiations. This is very important to me in so many ways. One is that, well, MIT is my alma mater, and, going there and giving a master class, it's just moving to me personally, the symbolism of that. And then the other piece is that MIT reached out to me proactively. That's another win. There's more wins in this whole thing. The third win is that it's going to be a masterclass to over 200 students. This is a top world class institution. They have a lot of negotiations experts, and they reached out to me. And win number four is that they not only offered to pay for the actual masterclass, but they offered to fly me there. They offered to pay for my hotel and incidentals. I just wasn't even seeking out speaking engagements at all. I mean, I've done something similar at CMU, Carnegie Mellon University, the Silicon Valley campus, which is actually on NASA's campus. It's super cool. I gave a workshop there for the students, and I've done some online workshops. But for MIT to want to fly me out, do this masterclass in front of over 200 students, and my formal training on negotiations was at MIT. I mean, I think I'm a good negotiator because a lot of it is because I'm Albanian. Another part of it is because I love behavioral sciences like psychology and stuff like that. But My formal training was at MIT. My professor was trained at Harvard Law School. And for MIT to, proactively reach out, want to fly me in, pay me a very generous amount for this masterclass, it's a huge achievement to me.
Yeah, I think this comes full circle because is this talk for the master's program that you actually did, the engineering
And broader.
master's?
So my program was around 40 students. This will be over 200 students, so a broader audience, much broader.
Yeah, this comes really full circle. I'm so proud of you and really excited that you are giving this talk.
Thank you.
For today's episode, as Gerta has been talking with the MIT team about the logistics, and no pun
Yeah.
intended, you did logistics engineering, the logistics about the conference, you had some back and forth on the conversation where you negotiated some of the incidentals, the hotel accommodations. You also worked out a very interesting deal with the hotel itself. And I think it'd be really interesting for our audience to hear this because, of course, our actual work is around job offer negotiations, compensation negotiations. But people encounter negotiations every single day, negotiating with your airline, your hotel, your rent, and all of the daily life type of things that come up. So we thought it'd be interesting for Gerta to cover what she did, where she negotiated all these things that I think a lot of people who are listening would also encounter in their lives too.
Yeah, and actually, the big theme here is not only that you negotiate everything, but the big theme is you and I, we talk about negotiations being very creative. And I'm about to share a specific example so that people really understand what I mean by creative. You don't usually hear of negotiations being creative. So, this is what I would love to go into.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, so MIT, I'm giving this master class. It's only on one day, but they are covering my hotel for around 3 nights because I might go to some events as well. You also need to fly in a couple days in advance sometimes because it's Boston in winter. And also, SF to Boston is like 6, 7 hours, which is insane. Europe is closer to Boston than San Francisco is, but I digress. So, MIT is covering a really nice hotel for me for 3 nights. However, I'm going to be in Boston with my mom. My mom is getting older, and Boston again is freezing in January. It's extreme, like, I don't know in Fahrenheit, but it can go not up to, down to minus 40 Celsius.
That's like basically 0 Kelvin. I'm just kidding, but it's very, very cold.
And so I don't want to move my mom around from one hotel to another. And what I did is, and yes, this will be a hotel negotiation, but more importantly, here's how you can be creative in your negotiations. I called the hotel and I said, hey, I will be a speaker with MIT on this date. And I'll also be there for 3 days before that with my mom on a personal part of the trip. And I know that MIT has special rates with the hotel. It makes sense because they host various speakers. And I said, I was wondering if you would be able to match the MIT rate for my personal part of the trip. And they said that it's a very big gap.
So before you spoke to the hotel, how did you prepare for the conversation?
Before I go into the negotiation, to be honest, I don't over prepare. This is probably something that people need to think about at a personal, you have to work with your own personality. I am the most creative on the spot. I don't know if you knew this about me, but I think I'm funniest when I think of something on the spot. I'm wittiest when I think of something on the spot. And even with negotiations, I have a general idea. I'm gonna first make an ask, and then I'm slowly gonna throw more things at them to see if they will bite, and I'll see what is possible. But I don't prepare too much. I don't prepare my talking points or phrases or anything like that. Even though when I used to give a talk for work before we had our negotiations company, I used to prepare my speech down to the phrasings because English is not my first language. And I also speak 7 other languages. And I was worried that a phrase would come to me in my head in another language and not in English, and then I would get stuck. So I would prepare every single word. But voice negotiations, I don't need to because it's not about the phrasing as much. Sometimes it is, but it's more about sort of the vibe and the gentle persistence and all that. We did have a client, I don't know if you remember this, who was way, I don't want to say over prepared, but too prescriptive. Do you remember this?
Yeah, as you were saying this, I was thinking about this past client, and one thing that I realized, because I had also hopped on some coaching calls with her, and I remember when we were practicing things that she would say, the very first take of her saying things, like practicing how to negotiate, would often be the best. And then each time that she would do it, it would just sound more and more inauthentic. I've seen you do this all the time where for you, you don't practice too much the exact wording or phrasing. That is just not as important as a lot of the first principles. Like, you should always be professional and cordial and polite. You should be showing excitement. As long as you're doing that and then you're actually engaging with the person in the conversation, that can carry you a lot farther in negotiations.
Yeah, I agree. But I remember this client, I don't know if we're talking about the same client, but like even to you, she sounded very rehearsed. And I'm sure she sounded even more rehearsed to the company. Basically, I don't over prepare, but I have a general sense of like, okay, here are some arguments that I'm going to share specifically for the hotel thing. And I can share about the rent and how I negotiated RSF rent a few years ago. But for the hotel, at first I was going to ask straight up, can you mention MIT rate? In my head, I'm like, they probably don't care too much. Also, because I had called earlier and I got someone who did not have the authority to make this happen. And she said, oh, it looks very quiet. So this is January around 14 or so. So she said, oh, it looks very quiet on the 14th. When I called the person who had the authority, I'm like, I'll just ask and maybe they'll just say yes and I don't need to over prepare. But I also was thinking, if they say no, here's a couple things I will say. One, my mom has health issues and I don't want to move her around. Can they do this as a favor out of the goodwill of their heart? My mom has so many and very extreme health issues. So I would just appeal to their good nature. Number two is I was gonna offer to email their boss and be like, I had such a good experience with this person. They were so kind, so cordial. I will use this hotel again and again. More often, I will tell all my friends about it. This one was more of a carrot. Another one was I'm happy to give a public review, either on Google Maps or Yelp or whatever hotels care about. This was in the back of my mind. Mm, Luckily, the hotel said yes right away, but they did say, wow, this is a big gap between the MIT rates versus their actual rates, but we're happy to accommodate. Now, I had another ask as well, which was, can we get two separate beds? Because, just me and my mom for about a week in Boston, it would be too crammed in one bed. And again, they said, that is a higher rate, but we're happy to accommodate. And I wanted to make sure that this would not go back to MIT in a negative way. So I'm like, if this affects MIT in any way, if they see this and they're like, what is she doing or anything like that, please let me know just so I cover the difference or whatever. And he's like, no, MIT will pay the same amount. We're just upgrading you for free. So they already gave me what I wanted. Now I still wanted to make this a win-win deal. So even though before I would have used all the arguments and the quote unquote carrots as a tit for tat, can you do this for me? And I'll do this. I still gave it to him as a thank you. So I was like, thank you so much for upgrading me in these two different ways, both price and better room. What can I do for you as a thank you? I'm happy to email your manager or whatever. And he said, you will probably get a survey. I'm like, what's your name? I'll put your name in the survey. And then he's like, you know what? Sometimes the survey doesn't come through. Can you do a Google Maps review? Now, I'm very privacy focused. I don't like putting my name publicly in random places, but I was happy to do it. And they had been very kind and generous. So I did that. And I actually used these sort of tactics with negotiating our rent in San Francisco. Do you remember how I negotiated the first rent when we moved to San Francisco?
Yeah, you were so persistent that you ultimately wore them down. No, but before we get into that, I was gonna say that you do this almost every time when you're negotiating, especially when it comes to rent or hotels or airplane tickets. You always ask for their name. You say, "Oh, by the way, what's your name?"
Wait, I hadn't noticed that. I do it so subconsciously.
Yeah, you always ask for their name, and then after you ask for their name, you extend that carrot that you talked about. And I think you genuinely are really grateful that you're happy to do it, right? Spend a few extra minutes to say, "Is there anything I can do for you? Is there any survey I can put your name down?" And just make sure that I really communicate that you've been so helpful. I really, really appreciate everything you've done. So I think this first principle always applies. Always be very polite, cordial, and especially if it's very low or no cost to you or to oneself, you may as well offer value, right? Is there a way that I can give back or make things better off for you?
Yeah. I mean, there's a slight cost. Like I said, I care a lot about my privacy. I don't like leaving random reviews publicly. And I don't want to be like someone Googled me and see, I don't know, me on Wikipedia or website, blah, blah, and also I left a Yelp review, I don't know, so it feels kind of random. I want to protect my brand, but so it does have a bit of a cost, but it's very worth it to me because I know the ROI, it will help this person so much more. Maybe they get promoted, maybe they get a raise, maybe they just have a better day as opposed to, someone seeing that I left a review. The name thing, I'm just trying to figure out why I do it. And I wonder if it's because sometimes there's a lot in a name. So I mentioned earlier that I speak around 7 languages. I've lost count, and I speak a little bit of other ones as well. So it depends on how you count it. But sometimes, especially in Boston, there's so many Albanians. So sometimes I do wonder if they tell me their name and it's an Albanian name, like, oh my gosh, I'm Albanian too. And then you connect at a deeper level. Or if they're Italian, I speak fluent Italian, or, whatever, Spanish. So I think part of me asks for the name. I'm just figuring this out live right now since you pointed it out. I think I asked for the name to see if we can connect it at an even deeper level.
And simply just asking for someone's name means you are connecting with them at a deeper level. These people who work the customer support at hotels and whatnot, they probably are not asked their name. If they are, it might usually be in the context of someone complaining, and that call is going to be more difficult for them. I think when you ask for their name, you are able to build even more rapport and find a win win.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are studies that show that our name is the most important word to us for many people, probably most, if not all people. Making sure you get someone's name and like you acknowledge it and all of that, it has a special touch to it. And this is psychological studies as well. This was both to give you guys a peek into what's happening with us, a quick update, but also the theme is here's how you can be creative in a negotiation. We can wrap it up here. Any final thoughts?
Nope, just wishing everybody a happy new year. And we are so grateful for everyone who has been listening to our podcast. And we do get people reach out to us and say, we have listened to every single one of your episodes. Or whenever we hear people reply on our newsletter, it really just brings us a lot of joy that people find a lot of value in what we are making here.
I just thought of this. I want to do something. If people comment on, so we check Spotify, we don't check Apple, sorry. We also check YouTube and also our newsletter. So if you leave your name in any of these three, newsletter, YouTube, or Spotify, you put your name in the comments somewhere, or even on our Instagram page, which we don't use it as much. On our future episode, once you will see your name, we'll be like, thank you, name, for following along. If you want us to say a specific message, we're happy to if it's not too wild.
I love this idea. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, wrapping this up now, and bye.
See you on the next episode of Gentle
Power.